When looking for the king of podcasts, you're at the wrong channel.
Well, excuse me!
Looking for good ideas for life? You're far from good hands.
Hey, bud, what's your problem?
If you think the listener is always right, you're far from the right place.
Out of order! Even in the future, nothing works!
Hosted by a Northeasterner by birth, but a rebel by choice.
Are you threatening me?
If you want a host that floats between love and madness,
and we know the night is always gonna be here anyway. Thinking of you's working up my appetite. Looking forward to a little afternoon delight.
then play on and listen to Crazy Train Radio.
All right, guys, listen to this blues riff and B. Watch me for the changes and try and keep up, okay?
Warning, creators of this game do understand the subject matter may be offensive to some, but they do honor the families and people that have been affected by these real-life tragedies that these individuals have caused. Want to play a game?
Oh, yeah!
Lover of true crime?
Yes, yes, yes.
Well, we got an interesting game for you to check out.
Wow.
With the mashup of influences such as horror movies, collecting cards, and RPGs.
What?
Led to giving birth to an incredible creation of this game, Killers, the card game.
You are all I killed with now.
This game is a collectible trading card game featuring some of the most infamous killers, with tidbits of trivia on the back of each card to help you learn some insight to each criminal.
Who the hell are you?
Let's not forget, during the game, cops will be chasing you and these criminals.
I'm a cop, you idiot!
However, check out their website listed through all social media today, which can be found under Killers, the card game.
Am I on the internet?
I want to play a game.
This is Ken Patera coming at you. And please listen to Crazy Train Radio. And these guys do a hell of a job, and I appreciate being on. Thank you.
Hey folks, it's your least favorite host in the podcast world, Croc, Jonathan Steele. And boy, do we have a good one for you today.
Hey everybody, I haven't hijacked Jonathan Steele's our show, Crazy Train Radio, but I'm back.
Oh, I didn't know you wanted to get involved with the discussion, Mr. Helper.
Hey, that book is so fucking popular, I even got one.
I bet you know a couple people to get that, Ken, but Mike, go ahead.
Ken Patera, in all seriousness, a legit class amateur athlete, as was his brother, amateur in football, great. We'll get into that. Obviously, pro wrestling legend, main evented. I call him Mr. Main Event because he main evented everywhere. And obviously, we'll focus. The book talks about main eventing in the Tri-WF for Vince McMahon Sr. against Bruno Sammartino at all of the classic venues. The main evented appeared everywhere on the planet. And fantastic new book. Great title when you think of it. Ken Patera, Weight of the World, with help from our pal and brother Kenny Casanova, George Luce, who I'm not familiar with, but Ken Patera, Weight of the World, brand new book just came out. And I do want to dedicate the show to Butcher Paul Vachon, who I think is still in Omaha from his native Montreal. He's battling a number of health issues. We were told he lost a leg, and he's been asking his friends and fans of his on his Facebook to recall and write out, his history, because he's forgetting his history. And this is a guy who knew intricate details. Back in the 70s, he would tell me about main eventing in India against Dara Singh in front of 100,000 people. Ken might remember that.
Yeah.
And he's one of those great, great legends. I wish he had been part of the Tales of the Territories, the docuseries that The Rock.
That would have been great. Yeah.
Let me ask that, and I'll throw it to Jonathan. But what was that experience like? We're going to get into your amateur career, how your dad bought one of the first TVs in Portland, and you had kids coming over to watch this newfangled box, that had images and audio. So your dad had a lot of foresight, as you did, and the rest of your family. But the Tales of the Territories, I wish, Paul Vachon, there was another guy from your era. Greg and Jim were fine, and Medusa and Diamond Dallas Page were fine, but they came from much later, and the true heart of the AWA was like late 50s on for Vern Gagne through the classic, early 80s.
Yeah.
And you were a part of the big thing. You were part of that first class, the Gagne Billy Robinson class?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that was 1972. We all graduated with honors. And Ric Flair got a dunce hat, I think. Yeah,
that was the drinking.
Stuck him in the corner. Let me tell you about the class. It was Ric Flair and I were living together when I was training for the Pan American Games and the Olympic Games, and so of course I got him into the camp. At first, Vern Gagne didn't want to take him because he already had 5 guys. He had the High Criers, Jimmy Brunzell and his son, Greg Gagne. He had the Iron Sheik, who at that time was Khosrow Vaziri from Iran, Olympian. He wrestled Greco-Roman in the 68 games down in Mexico City. And then a football player by the name of Bob Bruggers. He was good friends of Wahoo McDaniel. So Wahoo got him into camp. And then there was me, Ken Patera. And so when I got back from the 72 Olympics in 1972, it was late September at that time. And so Rick says, "Ken, have you talked to Vern about me yet?" I said, "No." I said, "Vern is in Italy on vacation with his family. And when he gets back, don't worry, Rick, I'll get you into camp." Because I told Rick Vern's feelings, like 6 months prior to that. And I said, "I think I have him softened up enough now to take 6 guys, because 6 guys make more sense than 5 guys. That this way we can all pair off with one another." And I don't know what the fuck Vern was thinking about having 5 guys as a max, but that's how he was. He'd get something in his head and he would change it. Kind of like a typical wrestling promoter, I think. If it's not their idea, it doesn't exist. And so anyway, so the 6 of us started, and so that was end of September. I think it was the 1st of October that Vern finally got his barn ready. He had a couple farms west of Minneapolis, about 10 miles, 15 miles, whatever it was. So anyway, we get out there the first fucking day. It was a gorgeous, sunshiny day, about 60 degrees. It was gorgeous. Well, as the days went by, 4, 5, 6 days. Now we're looking at, 20 below zero, 3 feet of snow. And he didn't change a goddamn thing. We were still in that fucking barn. And the slats on the side of the barn were 1 or 2 inches apart. Some were completely knocked out. So we have the chickens up in the roost where they piled the hay for the horses. So the chickens are upstairs shitting all over the canvas.
Oh, jeez.
So every morning we come in, we had to sweep the fucking ring out. And the horses were down below shitting and farting and everything. And oh God, that was unbelievable. So he didn't do a goddamn thing to that. The ring was broke. The canvas was loose and it was filthy. The ropes were, weren't tight at all. I mean, you hit the ropes right and boom, you're going to go ass over tea kettle out on the floor. And you didn't want to be on that floor, believe me. And so we got through wrestling camp and was that October? September? Yeah, October, November. And I graduated about the 12th of December. And I have to back up just a couple inches here. When December came, even Billy Robinson was complaining about how cold it was. I mean, we had an exceptionally cold winter. Yes. And so Vern was able to get the building down in downtown St. Paul, the old armory, Army Armory. And so, God, that was beautiful. Fuck, it was warm, hot and cold running water. It was just gorgeous. I mean, we went from the shithole to the penthouse. If that makes, the shithole to the penthouse. Because most times you go from the penthouse to the shithouse. And anyway, that was... and we all graduated with honors. Like I say, that had to be one of the best classes in all-time wrestling. We all wound up being main eventers.
Yeah, baby.
So I should say Bob Bruggers was in that plane accident with Johnny Valentine getting paralyzed, Ric Flair having his back broken.
Yeah.
I think one of the Crockett's passing away, that private plane, when like a couple of months either before or after the Bobby Shane one in Florida, that was pretty horrific.
Yeah, it wasn't too far after Bobby Shane went down there in Tampa Bay.
With Buddy Colt and I forget who was... And Bobby Shane had just come through our territory in Los Angeles, my home base, on his way to Japan, worked with Ed Carpentier in kind of a series of dream matches. And then we hear he'd passed a couple of months later. Let me say this too, Iron Sheik Cosmo Vaziri, class, big time athlete. When I think Vern sent him to Leroy McGurk. That territory was his first one. And but let me say this about Ken Patera. Won 4 consecutive U.S. weightlifting championships, 1969 to 72. Gold medal at the 71 Pan Am Games everybody knows about. Placed second in the 1971 World Weightlifting Championships in Lima, Peru. First American to clean and jerk 500 pounds. The only American to ever clean and press 500 pounds. Won the 72 Nationals in Detroit, which guaranteed him a spot in the 72 games. Before I pass to Jonathan, you eyewitnessed the massacre at the 72 games. That was, the whole world was watching at Munich, that horrific tragedy.
I was there watching it live and in color. 6:30 in the morning, it was on TV. The problem with that, as it was on TV, the German TV media, they were filming it. I looked out my window in our condo complex there, and it was right across the courtyard. So I watched it live and in person. I didn't have to watch it on TV. Yeah, it was unbelievable.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. Well, you persevered with the shithole barn. You persevered. That went on obviously to create much more amateur, sports history. Jonathan, let me throw to you.
Thank you, sir. And Ken, again, welcome. And I'm curious to know, because Vern was known for liking guys with an amateur background. Obviously, Kaz and Greg had an amateur wrestling, and Jumpin' Jim did, and go down the list of guys. But you came from a different background in weightlifting and track and field and such. Did he have the same respect for you as far as your amateur credentials?
Probably more so. And the reason I say that is because I went to the top. I mean, what I accomplished, nobody else in camp were able to accomplish. I mean, I was, champion of the world basically in weight in my sport, and that's what Wahoo McDaniel never wrestled, but he was a phenomenal football player, and so Vern didn't really care what sport you came from, just as long as you were a champion and a winner. That's what concerned him the most. But he definitely favored amateur wrestlers, But Vern had met my brother Jack. My brother Jack was defensive line coach for the Minnesota Vikings when I met Vern, and Vern loved my brother. He just thought he was the greatest guy, and the head coach of the Vikings at the time, Bud Grant. Bud Grant and Vern played football at the University of Minnesota together back in 48, 47, 48, I believe it was. And so that's, those guys had a connection there. And then when I came along, little brother, and so they looked after me, they didn't bullshit me or anything, sometimes professional wrestlers have a tendency to do.
No, not in that field line of work. Why would you say something like that, Ken?
I tell you what.
But I want to mention as well, because Mike obviously mentioned your family history, and you just mentioned Jack. Jack played for the Colts as well when they were in Baltimore. And fast forward, after Minnesota, he was the coach in Seattle, the first coach for the Seahawks. Yeah. Also, your brother Dennis played for the 49ers. So you come from a family of athletes. Yeah. When you think back about things, does it blow your mind that you not had three different sons from a family successful in their different ventures?
I think I just kind of took it for granted, because we were always competitive and we were all good, all Americans. And, I had another brother between me and Dennis, and he was high school All-American halfback at Cleveland High School in Portland. I don't know if you guys remember Terry Baker and Mel Renfro.
Mel Renfro.
I'm familiar with Mel, yeah.
Okay, well, Terry Baker was a Heisman Trophy winner after he left high school and went to Oregon State. And then Mel wound up at the University of Oregon. And then he got, was he drafted by the Cowboys? Do you remember?
I think he was with the Cowboys for this.
Yeah. Anyway, my older brother, Norman, the one that made All-American in high school, running back, we all went to Cleveland High School. So we had always had a big rivalry there. So can you imagine? I think there was another high school involved there in Portland. It was they had like 5 or 6 guys make college All-American and went to the pros out of that one class. and that would have been class of 59. Yeah. So, I mean, football was going wild in Portland, Oregon back in the 50s. Yeah.
Exactly. You wouldn't think of Portland as a hotbed for football, but
No, you wouldn't, but it was.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Yeah.
but you meant the name's been mentioned here, Billy Robinson, and obviously you hear the different stories throughout history with Billy. Yeah, he was a great amateur wrestler and all, but you also have heard that there was an ego involved. When you were training, did he give you shit? But were you also there when a guy from another class came in Bob Remus, Sergeant Slaughter? Because there's a story out there about a potential fight that happened in the barn, actually.
Yeah. Well, I like I say, my class already graduated with honors. We were all gone. And then Bob Remus came in, I think the next year with Chris Taylor. Chris Taylor was our super heavyweight in Munich, Germany, in Greco-Roman wrestling. And so, yeah, I knew those guys good. And yeah, the thing is, Billy was full of shit. And I'll tell you the straight up fucking, too bad he's dead, but he made, he was really a nice guy, cordial, intelligent, courteous, yes ma'am, no ma'am, typical kid from Manchester, England. And so anyway, Billy had a tendency to take liberties with people. He fucked up the Iron Sheik's leg during my tenure there. And then the next year, Bob told me that, Billy Robinson was really writing him hard, over nothing, here's a young kid, and he went to high school with Ric Flair, as a matter of fact.
Right.
Anyway, Billy was talking he befriended Baron von Raschke. Now, Baron's one that you don't want to fuck around with in amateur wrestling.
No.
And so anyway, Baron told me several years later that he had a talk with Billy about his attitude towards, the training camp and stuff. He says, Billy, I don't know if you're aware of it or not. A good collegiate wrestler in this country could kick your ass in wrestling. Oh, don't think that you're so fucking tough by taking liberties. These guys are giving you their body and you're fucking twisting their arms, their legs, and fucking them around. That's no fucking way to treat people. I told Billy, I said, you got everybody in your wrestling camp pissed off at you, and most of them are scared of you because they don't want to fucking have you show them any holds because they don't know, what you're going to do. Instead of showing them a hold, you take their fucking arm and, wrench them up and stuff. And he said, you better back off. And so Billy said, well, I didn't know I was that bad. And Baron says, yeah, from the guy, I talked to Bob Remus, and I talked to Chris Taylor and a couple of the other guys. They said that the camp is pretty good until you start getting jacked up. And so slow down.
Well, would you say Vern was like that too because of the amateur background? And then I want to have Dr. Mike jump back in here.
No, Vern would never take advantage of you. He wouldn't take liberty. If you're on the mat, like I was on the mat with him, several times. But I remember one instance we were out in the barn, and he liked to play tennis. So he had just come in from a tennis lesson, and he had this leather brace on his wrist. And so we're, scuffling around on the ring, and he had me down, then I escaped, and he got pissed off. So he gave me a leg sweep, and I fell down on the bottom rope. He put that fucking leather brace right across my face. And I says, is that how you play games? And he said, well, and then he jumped up, And I can't remember how old Vern, he must have been 49 or 50 at that time, but he always stayed in good shape. You watch him drink beer every night. He had that little middle-aged pot belly on him. But I was in the gym with him one day, weightlifting gym. It was a private club, and we were in there. How much can you bench press, Patera? I said, more than you. I said, I don't even do bench presses. I do overhead military presses. And so he said, well, spot me a couple of times on here. I want to see if I can do 315. That old bastard nailed 315 for a double. I said, fuck. I said, when was the last time you did a bench press? I don't know, 6 months ago. I said, oh, congratulations. I said, that's phenomenal. So he was tough and he was strong. Vern was voted the #1 amateur wrestler in the whole nation for the first 50 years of amateur wrestling. But were you aware of that?
No, I wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a hell of a feather in his hat. I read that in a wrestling magazine, Amateur Wrestling, and they showed how the voting went and everything. Vern came out #1. Yeah. I told Vern that. He wasn't even aware of it.
Nice.
Patera, Weight of the World, brand new book. Ken Patera back to Minnesota. God knows how he got back to cold, frigid Minnesota. But the stretching of students at schools is nothing new. I mean, we heard about it as recently as the late 70s with Buzz Sawyer at a Sacramento school. Stretching guys, the so-called to see if you could last or you were tough enough. And then often they would take your money. They wouldn't refund it. But
Taker told that story too.
Who told that story?
Taker, as far as into the 80s. Buzz Sawyer.
I think Don Jardine, who had a hand in his training, and Ken knew him as.
Jardine was a good guy, but he was a little salty.
So Ken, I want to ask you, with Robinson in mind and Gagne, where are the hooker shooters? These were the guys we knew from the 60s on as the world's hooker shooters. We don't have any left. There was Gagne, Thez, obviously, Carl Gotch, Danny Hodge, of course, Dr. Big Bill Miller, Robinson, of course, Stu Hart, Larry Simon, the great Malenko, and Bert Absaridi of England, who Thez said was the ultimate. But we don't have anybody like that now. Nobody, whether mythical or shoot legit. Where are these guys? Are they in maybe other sports, maybe not wrestling, that can pop joints and destroy people?
Yeah, well, Billy Robinson taught us all that shit. And about a year after I was in wrestling, we couldn't use any of that stuff, so I never practiced it anymore. And up until then, I'd practice hooking and catch and all that stuff. And I mean, it was brutal. I mean, you could fuck people up, real easy. And especially with my size and strength, I could have taken liberties with any fucking wrestler that I wanted to. and there wasn't anything they could do about it. But Ric Flair, even the high flyers, we all learned that stuff, and I don't even know if I remember any of it now. I mean, that was 50 years ago. 60, is that right? 50, yeah.
Yeah, 72, 73.
Yeah.
Did he teach it to you so you could defend yourself in case something went off the rails in a match, or if you just defend yourself, like if some football jock at a bar said, "Oh, wrestling is this and that," and then you could stretch the shit out of him? Is that kind of why you were taught that?
Yeah. But Vern wanted us to learn all that stuff, so we wouldn't be embarrassed by some jack off in a bar or something, that thought they were tougher than us. But, I told him, I said, I don't need that stuff. I have a right hand that's real handy. And so that, and, plus Billy, he's the one that taught us 90% of that stuff. Vern taught us some of it. But Billy was, he just wanted people kind of, afraid of him, I think. That was his attitude. Well, the thing is that none of us were afraid of him. And when he took liberty with Cosgrove, I got so fucking pissed off. I told him, I said, Billy, what the fuck did you fuck his leg up for? I mean, that wasn't necessary. Well, he was, being a smart ass. I said, no, he wasn't. You're the one that was being the smart ass. Now I'm telling him that right in the fucking ring in front of everybody else, because I didn't want to tolerate that crap. So anyway, the Knicks training camp was Remus and Chris Taylor and those guys. And you asked me this earlier. I wasn't there, but I guess Bob took him to the woodshed. Sergeant Slaughter, and and I heard about it. Then I asked Bob. I don't know, a year, 2 years later, I bumped into him somewhere, and I said, "Hey, I heard that you and Billy Robinson got into some kind of confrontation there at training camp. Way back when." He says, "Yeah." He said he was just fucking with me all the time, and I finally told him, I said, "If you want to wrestle, I'll wrestle you." And then they went at it, and Bob basically beat the shit out of him.
And you were joking. I'm sorry, jumping in here about your right hand and stuff, and you made me think of an old Harley Race quote. I think he was left-handed, and he would talk about, if I hit somebody with that fist and they don't go down, I'm gonna walk around them and see what's holding them up.
You got knocked the fuck out, man.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Harley was a classic. Harley had 3 or 4 sayings. I'm the toughest wrestler. I can drink the most beer. I can fuck the most women. I can drive my car the fastest. And the typical Harley. Harley was full of himself. I'll tell you, he was a great guy. I loved Harley. He was just he'd give you the shirt off his back. He was like Wahoo McDaniel, Mad Dog Vachon, and all these guys. They were salt of the earth type guys, and a lot of people weren't aware of that. Well, they had an image to uphold, and they were tough as nails, all those guys. Yeah,
exactly. And the thing with Harley, like you said, I can drive the fastest, I can fight the fastest, I can outdrink you, all that. Especially in those days, it's not like there were cell phones and all that other stuff. No. If somebody, the one thing, and I only met the man one time years ago, but the saying was, if you ever talk shit on Harley, I can do things better than Harley in whatever aspect. I can beat him in pool, I can outfight him, drive faster, any of that stuff. Word if word got to Harley that you were saying it, by God, if he saw you next time, it'd be like, so I heard you said this.
Oh yeah, yeah. Harley would confront anybody. You know, he was a salty bastard. You know, he wasn't afraid of anybody, and he wasn't afraid to fight anybody either. And that's just how Harley was. You know, that's how it was back in the '60s and '70s, and of course, Harley went into the 1980s. And did he wrestle in the 1990s? I can't remember.
Early 90s, he did a couple matches and stuff.
Did
Yeah.
he?
Yeah, because he had that school. He actually, you couldn't have better trainers at that point. Harley, Ricky Steamboat, and Les Thatcher. The three of them had camps. You know,
Yeah.
Harley co-owned and ran the Central States Kansas City promotion with Bob Geigel, and that's I think where the school was located, just outside of Missouri, Kansas, that state line.
Yeah, it was in Missouri. Yeah, yeah.
Harley, that brings me something. Oh, go ahead, Ken.
I had a camp up here in the late '90s in Minneapolis, and in about a year and a half, I ran at least. Let's see, how many did I think I had 52 guys go through that camp at $3,500 a pop.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I was running spot shows all over the place. I was averaging 40 shows a year for 3 years. And so I was doing very well. And a lot of my shows were casino shows, that were, guarantees, 25 and $35,000 a piece. Back then that was good money. And so I talked to Harley. We exchanged students periodically. I sent him a couple girls and a couple guys, and I think I had let's see, Dakota, Street Fighter, and then Heather, Shay. I bet I sent him 5 or 6 people after I closed up shop, and he took good care. I don't think he charged them, and I never charged any of his students either, But yeah, those were good days. Yeah.
Let me say this about Flair. 2 things with Flair. I didn't discuss this with you when we talked yesterday, but Flair was like a weightlifter when he was in Gagne's camp. Remember how big he was, and then how he transformed his body when he first went to Mid-Atlantic in like late '75.
Yeah, he lost a lot of weight. When we were living together, we had a gym in the basement. Bench presses, lat pull downs, squat racks, dip bars. Right, but we had damn near a full gym in our basement, and I had York Barbell Club send me a 450-pound barbell set, and can you imagine those fucking assholes charged me like $150? I said, what the hell? I said, anyway. Rick worked out religiously. I mean, he was almost a fanatic working out in the gym. He weighed 280, 285, and he always found time to work out. I mean, even more so than myself. And so I have to give him credit for that. But Rick was always in shape, and he got down. Let's see, when he left Gagne, he weighed 280. I weighed about 310, 315. And then Rick got down to about 250, and then 240, and then 230. And I think when he first won the NWA championship belt, he was around 235. Yeah, so Rick, he stayed in good shape.
And then, of course, you transform your body when we finally saw you with the bleach blonde hair, Mid-Atlantic, Tri-WF. But I want to say this, in '77, Rick had his first for just St. Louis at the Keel. He had his very first NWA title challenge with Harley Race, and you were on the card. I'm pretty damn sure because the guys in the locker room were like all jealous. Supposedly, this is why you guys were late. You were coming in on one of Crockett's private planes, the two of you guys, and the guys were like ribbing you when you got there for being late or whatever. But I mean, it was a packed locker room with the biggest talent, Dick the Bruiser to Bruiser Brody, Frank, Bobo was there.
Gene Kaniski.
I mean, everybody was there, and they were. I don't know if you remember, but they were giving you guys shit for being late, even though you were there in plenty of time before the start of the show. And
oh yeah, those guys. I remember Gene Kaniski. He's right in the middle of the locker room with just his shorts on, and I said, Gene, you ever think of getting in the sun? I mean, the summertime, the sun's bright. I mean, everybody in the locker room had a suntan except Gene. So Gene looks at me, looks around the locker room. So what are you talking about? Why would I put sunshine on this magnificent white, pasty, pimply body? I'm not that kind of guy. God damn. Everybody was laying on the floor, laughing their ass off. But Gene Kaniski, he was another tough bastard. You know, always claimed to be Canada's best athlete. You know,
like Dick Hutton says, pick Kaniski to be his successor. He would tell Munchnick and the rest at those NWA meetings who he wanted. Kaniski was the last guy he picked to drop to. Prior to that was Cowboy Dick Hutton, but Kaniski, very briefly, Kaniski and Walter Kowalski used to call and prank call Sam Munchnick, every weekend, either Saturday or Sunday. They'd do a phony phone call and work Sam Munchnick, who would take him a few minutes to figure out it was them again. I don't know why or how he was playing along. But let me read you this thing that Bruno Sammartino's family sent me. Our dad really, really loved working with Kenny and respected Ken Patera immensely for his legitimate strength and ability to draw incredible heat. Bruno enjoyed his matches with Ken always and was happy that Ken had a career selling equipment, we think, that was lucrative and that Kenny had achieved financial security. And, Bruno never stopped talking. I remember, talking to Bruno, and he always put you over. He loved working with you. There were a few people that he would always cite. He loved working with Monsoon and yourself and Bull Ramus and a few others. But speaking of Bull Ramus, who had a tremendous career in Portland for Don Owen, because you grew up and you actually watched Don Owen wrestling when he first started on whatever the channel was, KTLR, or I forget the channel there.
KPTV or something like that. Yeah,
like that. With his infamous brother Elton Owen, who would pay the boys to shoot what he thought, and they weren't shooting. They were working it, but Owen kept giving them extra money, thinking these were legit shoots in the locker room. But why did you ever go and actually get to work for Don Owen, or was his promotion just too small? Because you worked for all the major, big promotions, none of the the small dinky stuff.
Yeah, well, I asked Don Owens one day. I bumped into him over in Hawaii at the HIC building, and I was working for Ed and Lord Blears, and I guess Ed Francis actually owned the promotion over there. But he lived in Albany, Oregon, just south of Portland, not too far, 80 miles or whatever. And I told Don, I said, Don, I'm just starting. I'd only been in the business a few months at that time, but I said, I'd love to come work for you in Portland sometime. Nah, he says, you don't want to come to Portland. He says, I can't pay you the big money like you. He said, you're going to be working for Gagne and McMahon out of New York. He said, you belong in Madison Square Garden, not not in my garden out here in Portland. You know, I said, you don't want to promise me a rose garden?
That's what
Did
his
you
venue was
appreciate the
called.
honesty?
Huh?
Did you appreciate that honesty? He was like,
Yeah. Yeah. He told me he wouldn't be able to pay me the kind of money that I deserve. And he says, you know, you're going to wind up being a legend, and you're going to be sought after in this business, you know. And so I don't want to interject myself in that. And he said, but good luck. I said, but Don, that's it? I said, I really want to come to work for you. I said, my family's here and everything. I don't care if I, you know, can make the kind of money that, you know, it's not going to bother me to make less money than I could make in New York or any other promotion. But he was adamant. Yeah, he said, no, you deserve to be in the big leagues. And he says, I'm far from being the big leagues. And that, so his honesty stuck with me all those years. Yeah.
He and Jarrett were like the last two territories still alive and kicking and fighting Vince when Vince had pretty much closed down, you know, by rating talent, etc., by paying for TV, where the other promoters never had to pay for their TV. They just split ad revenue. But Don Owen and Jerry Jarrett were like the last two survivors of the territories against Vince and the WWF.
Yeah, that's true. I went in Jarrett's territory. Jerry Lawler called me and wanted to work a program. So I was in the AWA at the time. And so they were starting to exchange talent. And so I get down there to Memphis, Tennessee at the Mid-South Coliseum. And so Jerry and I work a program. And God, we sold out everywhere. And I used to go down there. Sometimes I'd stay 5 or 6 days and go around to the little towns, you know. And I mean, some of those, God, some of my payoffs were like $100, $150. And then I found out the other guys were making $25 and $50. So he, you know, so in reality, he was taking better care of me. But it led up to, I don't know if you guys remember Andy Kaufman.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, the big blow off came several months after that, and where Jerry Lawler gave Kaufman the pile driver, supposedly hurt his neck real bad and everything. Yeah, Andy ran around all. He got all the network TV. He was on the David Letterman show and all that, promoting that. And he said, I've hired the world's strongest man, Ken Patera, and Ken Patera is going to take care of that Jerry Lawler for me. And so I got a kick out of that. Those guys never even told me. They never sparked me up to what they wanted to do. And then I was working with Jerry one night down in Mid-South. He says, Ken, he says, we got it all set up. We're going to go into Rupp Arena. And I said, really? I said, God, what does that place hold out? He said, 20,000. I said, holy shit, you know, 20,000 for wrestling. And so I said, well, yeah, okay. I said, I heard that Andy Kaufman's going to hire me to take care of you because you fucked him up. He said, yeah, we're going to go that way. So anyway, we get up to Lexington, Kentucky. That's where Rupp Arena is. And I'm sitting in the locker room, and here comes Andy Kaufman. I had never met him before. He come in there with a grocery bag with handles on it, and he sets it down on the bench. And I didn't say anything. He didn't say anything. And then after a few minutes, I said, "Are you Andy Kaufman?" "Yes." I said, "I'm Ken Patera, your tag team partner." "Oh, nice to meet you, Ken." He didn't even know who the fuck I was. And so the only reason I know who he was because I saw him on the David Letterman show. So he starts unpacking his grocery bag, and he had a pair of long underwear, and he had these tennis shoes that looked like they had 1,000 miles on them, and baggy. Oh God, this guy was a classic. He loved wrestling. And I think he was actually good for the wrestling business. And a lot of people don't think that, but because I got to know him, and he was a legitimate fan. And later on, also we do the match. Now I was partners with Andy, and we had Jimmy, the Mouth of the South Hart, as our manager against Jerry Lawler. Would you believe that fucking Jerry Lawler beat all three of us? I mean, it was a miracle. It was a miracle.
Two quick things. Obviously, no, Andy knew who you were because he was a fan. He used to go with Debbie Harry, a blondie, to Madison Square Garden for years and years and years. So he saw you against Bruno. But Andy on the Letterman show with Lawler, that did more for wrestling's recognition. That was like Andre on the Tonight Show. That was huge, huge. The other thing that I hope you know that Jerry Jarrett said that Andy never cashed a single paycheck that Jarrett gave him, not one.
I was just going to say that. Years later, Lawler told me that. He says, "You know, that fucking Andy never cashed any of those checks for working with us." I said, "Really?" He said, "No, he was a true fan." And I says, "Well, God, I got some pretty good paydays off of those shows that we did with you." He says, "Yeah." He said, "I made pretty good too." And but yeah, Andy didn't cash any of those checks. He worked for free. Yeah,
he loved the business. He even produced a play. It only lasted one night. T-Neck Tansy. He and Debbie Harry, again of the band Blondie. It was a play about pro wrestling.
Really?
They loved the business. They loved the business that much.
Yeah.
And
Blondie was a big fan too.
Yeah.
I remember when she came to the Garden one night with was it Chuck Wepner, the heavavyweight boxer?
Right. Yeah. Chuck Wepner, who fought Andre on that undercard to Inoki Ali.
Yeah. So that they were coming in the Garden. I had just come out of the locker room, and here they come. And I says, "God, I know the big guy." Chuck was tall, and so I recognized him. I didn't know who the broad was, but that was Blondie. So they stopped, and Chuck recognized me and introduced me to Blondie. And I said, "Well, nice to meet you guys." They were down there to see Vince. And I said, "Well, Vince is just right up the hallway here, about 50 feet. Take a right and he'll be there," because I just talked to him. And so they had fun. Yeah, they were good people. Yeah, I enjoyed them. Yeah. So
that was when few celebrities. They later, at the first WrestleMania, Danny DeVito and Andy Warhol, all of those folks, Lauren Hutton, the model actress, they'd all admit they loved wrestling. So finally it became cool with the MTV era.
Yeah.
Let me throw back to you, because we'll probably have to drag Ken back on. Of course, we're talking to Ken Patera, Weight of the World, the brand new book. And we're going to ask Ken where to get this. Kenny Casanova has produced quite a few great books. But Weight of the World, because you were a weightlifter, you were a world-class athlete. I love the title of that. Ken Patera, Weight of the World, the brand new book. Jonathan.
Well, my last question I don't want to ask, and I am a true fan and mark of the guy I'm going to ask about. And obviously, I've heard a story that you told with Andre the Giant, and that there was a drinking contest in Vegas. But if you want to tell that story, great. But I'm curious to know what your thoughts what your thoughts are of the man, because there's the myth of Andre, but also it's the guy that you guys got to deal with on a daily and nightly basis on a professional and personal level.
Yeah, well, Andre and I were good friends, and we didn't travel around together because kayfabe was still
a thing
in existence, and so every time that we were together somewhere, working a match together, I wrestled Andre 600 times. People say, well, how can that be possible? I said, well, Andre told me. Andre, I said, yeah. His favorite subject in school when he was a schoolboy was math. And I got that out of him because he'd whip my ass at cribbage all the time. He won probably 60% of the cribbage matches that we had, and we had thousands of them. But anyway, Andre would take me to all kinds of places and never let me pay. He said, no, boss, this is on me. Well, what he was doing, he'd keep the receipts and give them to old man Vince, and Vince would reimburse him. That's how it worked.
Genius.
So Andre didn't have to worry about paying for his alcohol, which was substantial.
Go figure.
Or his food. He ate in the best restaurants, believe me, because he took me to several of them. And so anyway, it wasn't only in New York. It could be in Boston. It could be in Minneapolis. It could be anywhere. Tokyo, Japan, he took me out a couple times to Rudy's bar. Rudy was an old German guy that had a bar down in the cellar. They had the best German food. Those big ham hocks, Wiener Schnitzel, big sausages, and then we go. The Germans, they like drinking schnapps, Ruppelmans, Goldschlager, Jägermeister, all this shit was 100 proof or better. But goddamn, we had a good time. So anyway, we had a show in Las Vegas, and I was wrestling Andre that night at the Thomas Mack Center. It was completely sold out. I think capacity was 19,000 people. So anyway, there's about 8 of us. We're all staying at Caesar's Palace. We all wind up in the we were all checking in at the same time. So they had a lounge bar there. And so we all go over, sit in the lounge, and we push about 4 tables together and start ordering some beer. And Dick Murdoch, it was Dick Murdoch, Dino, Frank Valois, who was Andre's manager at the time.
Right.
And he was known for, his beer drinking exploits too. And Lou Albano, myself, and a couple other guys. So anyway, we sit down there. Here's Dick Murdoch, Captain America. Andre, I bet I can drink more beer than you can in 1 hour. I said, oh, fuck. I said, Dick, why do you make a ridiculous challenge like that? You know, it's 9:30 in the morning. And so anyway, Andre says, yeah, I like that. So we tell the bartender, they didn't have a hostess at the time that early in the morning. So bartender comes over, takes all our orders. I said, don't worry about taking any orders. Just give us all a beer. And I said, this is going to be a beer drinking contest. Is there any way that you can keep track of the bottle caps? You see, yeah, they had those little plastic containers that people put their quarters in, or silver dollars, whatever, when they were playing slot machines. And so good. So I told him everybody that was there. So he put the name on everybody, on all the cups. And so he was in charge of the bottle caps. That way we would know how many beers everybody drank. Well, after an hour, Andre drank like, I don't know, 10 or 12 the first fucking hour. And Murdoch had drank 6 or 7. So I said, Murdoch, you owe me $100. What? I said, I bet you that Andre could beat you. I bet $100 and you agreed to it. Oh, no, I was just kidding, Ken. I said, fuck you. And so I said, forget about it. So anyway, we kept drinking. And we were drinking, and we were drinking. And we drank until 7:30 that night. And so anyway, of course, we had ordered a bunch of steaks. They had these little 6-ounce steaks. And Albano must have ate 15 of them. Andre ate 15. I think I ate 8 or 9 of them, just a couple bites to each steak. So anyway, after it was all over, I went up and talked to the bartender. I said, you have all the bottle caps in the plastic tub? Yeah. He said, I just counted them. He said, Andre, 116. Frank Valois, 70. I think he was close to 70 years of age at that time. And he said, Patera, 44. And God, who in the hell took third or fourth?
Murdoch?
No, fuck. No, he was fourth, but like 38. He didn't even crack 40 beers. And so then Albano drank about 20, and then he quit drinking beer and he started drinking vodka. And that was his liquor of choice. Oh, fucking Lou got so fucked up. So no, he's the only one that really got sloppy. I mean, fuck, he's fallen off his chair, and you guys must have heard stories about Lou.
Yeah,
Not Lou.
Yeah, he was insane when he drank, and so anyway, we all lost track of time. Well, the matches at Thomas Mack started at 8:00 and it's 7:30. I says, "Hey guys, we got to get going." So we all went up to our rooms, grabbed our bags and everything, and I had talked to the guy that drove the shuttle bus, and so he drove us over to the Thomas Mack Center. Now we're all fucked up. I'm not going to say that we were sober by any means after drinking that amount of beer. We get to the back side of the Thomas Mack Center where we all went in. I look around, fuck, I didn't hear anything. I didn't see anybody. I said, anybody show up for this goddamn thing? They said, yeah, sold out. So we opened another door to go down the hallway to the locker room, and we could hear the crowd, rah, rah, and the announcer, and they were getting getting the people warmed up. And we get in the locker room. Arnie's scolding. Where in the fuck have you guys been? He said, don't tell me, I already know. You're at Caesar's Palace at some stupid beer drinking contest. I said, yes, you're right. Whoever told you is right on the money, Arnie. And he says, oh, God, can any of you guys walk straight? I said, no. I said, especially the big guy. So anyway, he says, Patera, he comes over to me. He's got his notes and everything. He says, you're working with Andre. I said, yeah, I know. He said, it's going to be on TV. Can you guys get me 15, 16 minutes? I said, well, I don't know. I talked to the big guy. And he said, Andre, can you get 15? He said, yes, boss, whatever you need. I said, well, there's your answer. So we got to get all our gear on and everything. I can't remember how many. We had about 5, 6 matches in front of us. So we were able to get it together pretty good. And so we went out. Andre and I went out to the ring. And I went out first. And then here comes the big guy. And so, of course, I wouldn't let him in the ring for probably 3, 4 minutes. Every time he tried to get in, I'd go over and threaten to hit him. He'd, drop down on the floor. And finally, he gets in the ring. Now, we didn't touch each other for 8, maybe 10 minutes. I thought we were going to have a fucking riot. I mean, the people were so pissed off at me. And I said, well, I'm the #1 heel in the business. I guess I can do this. And so anyway, we worked around. Finally, we tie up. He throws me off and brings the big foot up, but I hooked the rope and slid out underneath the rope. Oh my God, people went crazy. And so after about 15 minutes, we did a deal where he gets me on the rope, pounding the shit out of me. Then he throws me in, brings the big foot up again. I take the boot, I stumble back, went over the top rope. Now I'm out on the floor. And so I grab a chair, throw a chair in the ring. I grab another one, throw it in the ring. And so then the referee counts me out. And so I said, God, I wish every night was that easy. I think we only touched each other 2 or 3 times. And,
well, as we wrap, I want to bring up, because you mentioned about traveling all over the world and had different places of food and drink and all that stuff. Is there a favorite place you got to go to?
I love Tokyo. Yeah, the steakhouse and the Rudy's, the German restaurant bar. Now, Rudy and Andre were good friends. And I mean, he took care of us. Oh, man. And the German food was fantastic. The big ham hocks and the Wiener Schnitzel and mashed potatoes, sauerkraut, all that stuff, the big sausages. And that was one city. Then we'd go over to Roppongi Square. That was a place to go for nightlife. I remember I was with Wahoo McDaniel one night, and we had been wrestling, God, south of Tokyo. Anyway, it was far enough. We had to take a plane, and because we had the next day off, and that was rare, because when you went to Japan, you worked every fucking night, whether it was for 3 weeks or 6 weeks. So anyway, Wahoo and we fly up to Tokyo, and my sister-in-law at that time was an airline stew for Northwest Orient. So I had called her a couple days prior to that. I said, hey, you got a girlfriend that you can bring along? And I said, Wahoo McDaniel is with me. And she said, yeah. So we met them at, God, I can't remember, somewhere in Roppongi Square. And anyway, we wind up in this nightclub. It was up on the second floor, looking down on Roppongi Square. You know, there's like 1 million people out there milling around and everything. So we were up there with the two girls, and so Wahoo, he's getting pretty liquored up. And they had these big white couches, leather couches that we were all sitting on. So Wahoo says, well, let's get some booze. I said, I don't think you need any more booze, Wahoo. I said, you better slow down. So my sister-in-law at the time, Annie McClellan, I says, you don't want to get in a drinking contest with Annie. Wahoo's loud and obnoxious and everything. So next thing you know, about an hour later, Wahoo's kind of reclined on that leather couch. He passes out. He slid off that leather couch right under the big glass coffee table that they had. I started to laugh. I said, Annie, wake him up. Jeez. He's passed out. I said, wake him up, pour a drink on him or something. Yeah, so he finally wakes up. I said, I told you, you dumb fucking fat Indian, don't get in a drinking contest with her. And she could drink a bottle of whiskey and you wouldn't even know it. I mean, she was from an alcoholic family.
Dr. Mike, you want to put about one things?
Yeah, well, Roppongi, for those that don't know, is the Americanized district of Japan. And when I was almost living there, 90 to 92, you'd go to the Hard Rock Cafe and they have the itty bitty, like quarter-sized patty of beef for a hamburger and fries. And that was like $49. And that was 1991. So, but It was a lot of fun. It was insane. Ken probably saw the Japanese businessmen that would get drunk and they'd be laying on their backs in the middle of the streets.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Not exaggerating. They were effed up big time.
Yeah, totally. You know, one thing I know is they were just like the Germans. They drink too much, pass out, and they all smoke cigarettes. I mean, God damn. Did you notice that?
Yeah, well, because they could still, the U.S., they banned smoking on flights. So when I'd take Korean Air to Narita Airport in Japan, the plane would be gassed out, and then you'd get there, and then, of course, all over Tokyo, everywhere, the electronic district, you see these quarter machines, you know, the vending machines with like everything, bottles of booze and cigarettes. I mean, cigarettes were plentiful. But on the good side, it's the first time way before COVID I ever saw people wearing masks. The Japanese people so considerate. If they had a sniffle or the slightest cold, they put on a mask so they wouldn't get other people sick. So I was impressed from 1990 on. And the first time I shot at Karakuan Hall for Briscoe dropping to Baba and he won it back a week later, they told me, the other photographers and the management of All Japan, you can leave your camera case here. You can leave it wide open with your wallet, go shoot ringside, come back at the end of the show, nothing will be touched. Now, you know, in the U.S., the shit would be gone in 5 seconds, not in Japan. So I equally love Japan. This man, Ken Patera, amateur, legit cred to the max, pro wrestling, total legend. He should be in all of the halls of fame if he's not in upstate New York, the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, or Iowa, the Thez Tragus Museum, and then the one in Vince's mind, he should be in. The book, Ken Patera, Weight of the World. It's available probably amongst many places, WOHW.com. But let's let Ken finish up and let you plug. Where can people find out about you, and where also do you want to send people for the book?
Yeah. Well,
Anything, any gimmicks you have, anything related to Ken Patera sports.
well, the gimmicks are all gone. I sold them 4 or 5 years ago. And so anyway, my website is kenpatera.com. And they can order the book off of that, or Walking on Hot Waffles, WOHW.
Oh, that's right.
But the thing is, when they order from me, I'll autograph the thing. And so they can get it kenpatera.com. And I have it on several websites too. But anyway, yeah, I loved writing the book. You know, for 40 years, my friends and acquaintances and what, you got to write a book. You got to write a book. So I wrote a book. And I started up when I was 75. I'm 79 now.
Wow.
I'm in good health except for my fucking back. My back is completely destroyed. I'm having back surgery the end of May. And it's going to be, I talked to the doctor and I said, how long is this operation going to be? He said, 4.5, 5 hours. I said, my back is that fucked up? I said, and he said, yes, it is.
And I can speak from experience on that because I had a back surgery right before COVID hit. It was supposed to be 3.5 hours, but yet the doctor was in there for 5. So I know the road you're going to be on and hope for the best for you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And well, I've been putting it out. I first had my back exam and when I was still wrestling back in the late 70s. And my doctor at that time, he was the #1. He was president of the United States Orthopedic Association. And he was right here in Minneapolis. And he told me, he says, Ken, if you can hold off for 20 years, he said the technology is going to be so far advanced by then. So after 20 years, and now it's like almost 2000. So I went down to his clinic. He had just passed away. Harvey O'Phelan was his name. Really a great guy. And I talked to his assistant at the time, who had, you know, by this time the guy's in his 60s. And he says, well, Ken, he said, your back is a little bit worse, but if you can hold off for another 10 or 15 years, the technology is going to be so more advanced.
Jeez.
So anyway, here it is, like 40 years later, you know, 45 years later, I'm finally going to have it done. I have to use a fucking walker just to get around the house. And so, yeah, that's where I'm at. So,
is that from all the bumps or the weightlifting or a combination?
Well, I was when I was born with a mild case of spina bifida. So the doctor told my parents that I'll never play football like my big brothers because of my back. And well, anyway, I wasn't that
doing
great.
a weightlifting.
Yeah. So anyway, I wind up being the first person to ever lift 500 pounds overhead, 1969. And then my other weightlifting exploits speak for themselves. And then after all the heavy weightlifting, what do? I start pro wrestling. Yeah, like I told you, I wrestled Andre over 600 times. And so I told people, I said, well, I tell them, to cut to the chase, I had Andre body slam me off to the top rope, backdrop me, suplex me. Hulk Hogan, I wrestled him probably about 300 times. And so I says, all the shit I went through. Plus, I had 3 ridiculous auto accidents. and they were all rear-end collisions. And I mean, 2 of them were really bad. But anyway, I'm still here, still kicking, except my back is fucked up. I mean, really fucked up.
Well, we wish you the best of luck with the surgery.
We definitely wish you the best. I'll be checking in on you. Ken Patera, Weight of the World is the name of the book. Brand new book, classic that just came out. WOHW. What is it on Hot Waffles? WrestlingOnHotWaffles.com, or what does that stand for?
Walking on Hot Waffles.
Walking on Hot Waffles.
Yeah,
well, you might stay for a little while. Here's the back cover, classic shot of Kenny, who very few main evented, not just Madison Square Garden, the classic matches with Bruno and Backlund, all over Vince Sr.'s tri-WF territory, but main evented in the AWA, obviously, main evented in the NWA. Hawaii, we didn't even get into talking about Ed Francis promotion, really, with Lord Blears. Classic at the HIC that's now been renamed Blaisdell. I refuse to use that name. I still call it the HIC.
Yeah.
Japan. Ken did everything in amateur and pro sports and more. And the book is incredible, so it belongs in everybody's collection. Give yourself an early holiday gift, etc. And Ken will be checking back with you. The one and only Ken Patera, total absolute legend, and as usual, pleasure, honor for us to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you. And they can get it at my website,
KenPatera.com.
Yeah, KenPatera.com. And I'll autograph it and the whole 9 yards. If people request a little note that they want me to sign, I'll do that too. So I'm looking forward to it. The book sales have really taken off. Sold on Amazon and several websites, but WOHW, walking on hotwaffles.com or kenpatera.com. Yeah.
All right, Ken. Kombate Kudasai. Good luck to you on the surgery. I know you know your Nihongo, Japanese, and it's been a pleasure having you on Crazy Train Radio. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you. Please support Ken's book. I know everybody's going to love it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Hey there, Friday fans. We know how much you enjoy the movies. Enjoy grabbing your Friday merchandise and interacting with the Friday family, whether it be at conventions or during our particular watch-alongs. Well, when you're looking to get yourself masks, why not check out our friends over at Camp Blood Customs out of New York State and order your specific custom mask from any of the films. All orders are made specifically. Your needs and wants are. Make sure you find Camp Blood Customs on Facebook, Instagram, and all over social media and order yours today.
And you're listening to Crazy Train Radio. Don't take a nap.